thing, like even like, so a lot of doctors are salary based. A lot, I should say, community doctors, not so much hospital docs, but I don't really know how they get paid. But some docs are still working fee for service, meaning you only get paid when you see a patient. So those doctors right now too, like a lot of them are having to close their practices because they're not making any money. You know, so it's kind of shitty, but what are you gonna do?
They can join like the rest of us, I guess. They join
Exactly.
me and Alan.
Everybody's suffering together.
All
Is
right,
Jordana
well,
there, Steve?
yeah, she's just feeding Isabella in the corner here.
Hi.
Hi, Jordana. No, I was just gonna say, because you might have a lot of answers that I don't even have with regards to this stuff.
Oh, yeah, because you want to do supplements.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's up her alley for sure.
Yeah.
Well, what do you got planned?
Well, we can do a bunch of stuff. I actually had, guys, I had to like do homework for this stuff. I haven't done a lot of this stuff in a while. I'm like, I have notes and everything.
Nice.
Well, there's the usual stuff, right? If we can talk about, and then like the stuff that I would talk about more with patients in a family doctor's office, kind of more prevention stuff. And then there's the actual like fitness supplements. If you guys want to touch on that stuff a little bit, we can do that. That's maybe where you and Jordana probably have even more info than I do. But yeah, just from if you want to, do you want to kind of get into it, or do you want to?
Yeah, what I mean, would you start with like something like that's related to maybe potentially staying more healthy for not getting coronavirus, like immunity kind of thing, like maybe whether that's more like supplements or or vitamins or.
So yeah, as far as that kind of stuff goes, I don't know if you guys follow, I know one of our group chats, I keep telling people to watch Dr. Isaac Bogach on CP24 in the morning. He's on CP24 at 7:20. Yeah, Al is nodding her head. He's really, really good because it's like a 20-minute question answer period. Bottom line is that in terms of like nutritional supplements and that kind of stuff, there's no evidence for like anything like that preventing COVID. But that being said, obviously, yeah, I mean, the more, you know, the healthier your baseline is obviously going to put you at an advantage, you know, if you do happen to get any virus, but obviously COVID would fall into that category, right? But nothing specific. Somebody else yesterday asked me, I think it was Leo, was asking like if there's certain foods that, I don't know, like you hear all sorts of weird theories now, right? Like these foods have high pH or low pH balances and the virus has a high pH. Like none of that's true, right? Like you got to take all that stuff with a grain of salt. So eat well, eat healthy, you know, exercise, wash your hands. That's as far as like nutrition goes for COVID. That's really, I don't know, that's as far as it goes really. But actually there was one quick update for COVID this week, was that now, just, I know we're not talking about COVID, but any symptoms, you can get tested. So up until now, it was like if you have fever, if you have travel history, if you have, you know, you had to meet certain criteria. Now that's not the case. So at Mackenzie Health, any symptoms at all, fever, cough, shortness of breath, headache, diarrhea, any of those would qualify you for testing most likely, which is a good thing, right? The more people we can test, the better.
Is that just because the testing has become more available?
Yeah.
Is that at all testing centers or just Mackenzie Health?
I don't know if it's all testing centers, but it is true for Vaughan. Vaughan seems to be a real hotspot. So
yeah, I've seen a lot of cases coming out of Vaughan, eh?
Yes. So the Longos near me at Weston and Rutherford has finally closed for 2 weeks. If somebody finally came to their senses. But anyways, that's that for COVID. But yeah, so let's just go into like that. So I don't know, as far as like family medicine goes, I talk about the same stuff all the time to patients in terms of these particular supplements, right? People are always asking about omegas, calcium, and vitamin D. Like those are the big kind of the three trio, you know, common ones that we see all the time. So in terms of, I don't know, I guess I'll just go through them quickly, or if you guys have specific questions. So omegas are a big one, right? The omega 3s and 6s. Hey, Victoria. These are like your fish oils, right? So definitely, you know, lots of good evidence around cardiovascular health. So, they're important in keeping your heart healthy, brain development, especially in babies and kids. Basically so the recommendation is really, try to eat fish 2 to 3 times a week. For some people, that's not really easy to do. So you can take a supplement, right? So if you're supplementing, Steve's like this. If you're supplementing,
He hates fish. He hates fish.
yeah, I mean, yeah, anyways, but the recommendation is about 200 to 300 milligrams per day. So like your omega fatty acids are your EPAs and your DHAs, right? So just try to, like, as a baseline, just try to remember a couple servings of fish a week is probably ideal. If you're not getting that, go ahead and take a supplement. Probably fairly important in a lot of stuff: cardiovascular disease, decreasing blood pressure, just general heart health, that kind of stuff. Actually eye stuff too, apparently. And I think that's maybe a bit newer, just in terms of like health of the eye and the structures of the eye. Omega is good for that as well. Questions about omegas? Or ideally taken with fatty meals, but I mean, if you're like me, if you take them at all, then that's a bonus. So
Doriana, can you remind me again, or repeat the milligrams for the EPAs and DHAs?
So it's going to vary depending on what your goal is. So for some people who have really high triglyceride levels, which are like the fats in your blood, we can actually use the omegas to decrease the triglycerides. That would be a fairly high dose, like 3 to 4 grams a day. But I mean, I would say probably 2 to 3 grams a day is ideal.
Okay, because I'm just looking at my Kirill oil, and it's like 60 milligrams and 30, which is like nothing.
Is that just an omega?
It's the wild Kirill fish oil.
Oh, okay.
Pretty low, doesn't it? Seems pretty low for the omegas.
16 milligrams?
60. That's pretty low.
60. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I should read the label more when I buy it.
Well, that's the thing, right? I find that like a lot of these things, when you actually read the labels, it's very confusing, because like it'll say, like, especially a good example of that, which was the other one I was going to talk about, was calcium. So you can get a calcium supplement, but what you really have to look for is what is the elemental calcium in that supplement. Right. That's the dose you're looking for, right? So yeah, you do really have to be careful with the labels.
Because it says 500 milligrams, right? But it doesn't say, but then if you take a look at and read the instructions, it breaks it down to all the ingredients.
Does it specify EPA and DHA, Ala?
Yeah, EPA 60, DHA 30, which is pretty low.
So it is pretty low.
Yeah.
If you want a really good brand is Nutricy, because Nutricy, like the one that I take, just because also I get higher EPA because I'm breastfeeding. Nutricy has really good high dosages of DHA and EPA per, like, I think it's like per teaspoon is 500 milligrams and 300.
And is that at health food stores only, or any store?
No, it's anywhere.
What about Shoppers? Recently?
Like Shoppers, Walmart has it.
Okay, perfect.
Amazon has it.
Thank you, Nutricy. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Doriana,
yeah.
Can you take too much? Like too much omega?
Oh, sorry, Victor. Are you asking me if you can take too much, Victoria? You just cut out. Oh, I think it would be really hard to take too much.
Okay.
It would be like in general, most of these supplements, when you're talking about like vitamins and minerals, it's not easy to overdose on them, right? Because your body will naturally excrete the excess. There are a couple that you don't want to really go over, but an omega, I mean, I don't think you would. I think you would have to try to really overdose on those. The one vitamin you do have to be careful with, but especially more so for women, right, who are pregnant, is vitamin A. So that's a big one. You have to be careful with your vitamin A if you are like of childbearing age, because that one can be teratogenic, right? So it can cause fetal malformations. So that's one that you do have to be careful with the dosing. So that's your omegas. And then let's just do calcium quickly, because it kind of ties into vitamin D. I feel like, Jordana, I don't know if you find this and what your thoughts are. I feel like dairy in general has gotten a really bad rap the last few years.
Oh yeah, especially when you see like documentaries and stuff like pro vegan documentaries and stuff linking inflammation and stuff like that to dairy. It's gotten a really bad rep. But I think part of that is like, is dairy inflammatory? Yes, but there's also a host of other foods that are also inflammatory as well. And it's like the whole point is to get a balance of it as opposed to just all pro-inflammatory stuff. But
yeah, and I think that it's got, yeah, I agree. I think it's gotten a bad rap, and it also sort of has become this like dairy makes you fat kind of thing. That's become a real popular kind of mindset in the last few years.
I think a lot of the times, many people will say that something simple like dairy is the one that's making you fat, not inactivity. People are quick to throw
it's quick to
they're quick to throw one thing at it instead of the
demonize
actual
something.
issue. And they're like, no, I'm not fat because I'm lazy and I don't do anything. I'm fat because I drank milk.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah. So I think my biggest message with this is that calcium and dairy are very important. They are very important dietary requirements, specifically in adolescence, right? So you are building bone, and you're building that bone density the most during puberty. So that's another really big thing, right? So when I have parents who are like, oh, well, I don't have my kids on dairy, or, not to say that your calcium has to come from dairy, but obviously that's the easiest way to get it. So I think you just have to be careful with that. So like a typical adolescent would need about 12 to 1500 milligrams of dairy a day. Adults, like let's say up to 50 years old, need about 1000 milligrams. And so this is elemental calcium that we're talking about, right? So look at your supplement. Yeah, see what your elemental calcium dose is in there. So for adults, it's about 1000. And then for postmenopausal women, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, Ella, during the mobility section. Postmenopausal women need a little bit more. 1200 would be the recommendation. But remember, that is your combination of diet and supplements. So I always tell my patients, my postmenopausal women, you want to get about 1200 milligrams of calcium a day. But that is a combination of what you eat plus your supplement. So I have some women who eat virtually no, like they don't have calcium at all, right? Like, dairy. They'll have a little bit of milk in their coffee and that's about it. So they need most of that calcium to come from a supplement. Whereas if I have a patient who does ingest some dairy, then I say to them, for about a week, try and calculate what your average daily intake is. And then you just take the rest as a supplement. So a glass of milk, like an 8-ounce glass of milk, generally has about 300 milligrams of calcium. So are you having the equivalent of 4 of those in a day? If you are, then you're good. If not, you supplement the rest of that. Okay, so that's calcium. Calcium also comes in some different formulations. The calcium carbonate is probably better absorbed with meals. Calcium citrate, I think it is. Yeah, that's the one that you have to, it's better absorbed if you take it on an empty stomach. What else? Anything else about calcium you guys want to know? And then, so to go with that, obviously, you need the vitamin D part of it, right? So you can take all the calcium you want, but if your vitamin D is not sufficient, you're not going to really do much with that calcium once it enters your body, right? You need the vitamin D to absorb the calcium. So vitamin D is hugely under what's the word I'm looking for? North Americans generally do not have enough vitamin D, right? Because it's made through the interaction of the skin, of the UV rays on your skin. So UV light hits your skin, there's a reaction there, a chemical reaction that produces vitamin D. Vitamin D will then help to absorb calcium in your body. But because we're, winter half of the year, and then especially now we're practicing sun safety a lot more, right? So you put on the sunscreen that's blocking those UV rays, you're not really getting a lot of that reaction on your skin. So vitamin D is really important. So adults in general would need about 6 to 800, it's dosed in international units. So this is the one that I recommend, the D drops. Have you guys seen these? D drops. They're super easy to use because you just turn it upside down, you get a drop out. They have no taste, no color. And they're really simple. You can put them in whatever, your coffee, you can put it on the back of your hand, however you want. Generally speaking, I tell most adults 1000 a day. Okay, 1000 units a day. If I have a woman or a male who's osteoporotic, generally I bump that up. But on average, you should be doing 1,000 international units a day. Kids need about 600. Okay, so important in kids too, especially now because we're slathering them with sunscreen, right? In the summertime. So calcium and vitamin D go together. Sometimes you'll find them, if you don't want to do this by itself, you can find a calcium and vitamin D. A lot of times they come together, like in a combined form. But you have to be careful because sometimes those ones, they'll have 400 units of vitamin D, which isn't really enough, right? So you still have to take the extra vitamin D to get to the 1,000. So just be careful to see what your dosing is on the whatever brand you're using. The other thing about this actually, because this is good for somebody like me who never remembers to take it. So what I'll do is I'll take like 7 drops once a week when I remember. You can do that with a vitamin D. You don't have to do the 1 drop daily. So in case you forget, you can kind of load up on it in one day. Anything else there?
When you're typically telling your patients to take, omegas, is it like normal practice for doctors to tell them to couple it with vitamin D as well?
Well, so yeah, are you asking because vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin?
Yes.
Chris, yeah, probably that would be the best way to do it. I would imagine, not really knowing the full like sort of physiology behind it, but yeah. Which means, yeah, basically fat soluble vitamins are vitamins that are best absorbed with a fatty meal or fat with it. So perfect pairing would be a fatty fish, right? Or something like that. So yeah, but in all honesty, like if I can get those people to just take their calcium and vitamin D daily, I mean, yeah, as long as they take it. If you can take it with a fatty meal, better, but as long as they take it, I'm happy. Because, so the thing with calcium and vitamin D, right, is that obviously what we're trying to prevent here is osteoporosis. So, and people, I think like there's, we hear so much about cancer. We hear so much about heart disease. Now it's obviously COVID, but cancer, heart disease, those really take up a lot of people's headspace. But when you talk about something like osteoporosis, it doesn't really seem to like bother people. They don't really seem to see it as a bad thing, right? But when I tell my patients, if you're an elderly person and you break let's say you fall and you break your hip because you have osteoporosis, your chance of being discharged from hospital alive go down tremendously, right? So we're not just trying to prevent a little bit of thinning of the bones, osteoporosis. The reason we're trying to prevent the osteoporosis is because we know that death rates and mortality rates from hip fractures are very high. So it's that bone health is extremely important. And of course, to go with that is your weight-bearing exercise, right? So weight-bearing exercise, calcium and vitamin D are keys for prevention of osteoporosis and bone health.
One thing also just to add into about vitamin D is that there's a lot of literature now that's pointing to vitamin D helping with things like depression and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering if you've seen any of that in your practice, or if that's something that to consider too. Yes.
I've had a bunch of people ask me about that. I don't know what the science is behind that specifically yet, but I do think that it is a field that they're kind of looking into. The other thing with vitamin D is that we think it might be beneficial in the prevention of multiple sclerosis, right? Demyelinating diseases, because we see a much higher rate of those types of diseases in countries that are further away from the sun, right? So, so probably an important prevention method in reducing the rate of MS. So yeah, super important vitamin D. I'm going to throw this one out there because I actually want to know what you know about it, Doriana, because I am very perplexed. So magnesium. Magnesium is it's a very important factor in a lot of processes, cellular processes, right? So it's very involved in muscle processes. It's very involved in transporting other minerals across cells that are important in heart function and stuff like that. So it's not something that we really see commonly in family medicine, like to somebody who comes in because they have low magnesium levels. That's just not a thing that we really see. But I have a lot of people ask about magnesium and sleep. And
Yeah.
I couldn't really find any real solid evidence behind magnesium and sleeping. It's obviously used as a laxative because you use milk of magnesia and stuff like that. But in terms of sleep, I don't know if you know any like actual science behind that. I found it was very hard to find anything. If you Google it, you find tons of stuff.
Oh yeah.
On actual like medical evidence-based stuff, I
Yeah.
couldn't find a real association between it. So not to say that it would really hurt you if you're taking it, because I know a lot of people take it. And
Mhm.
hey, worst case scenarios, it causes a placebo effect. Fantastic. Doesn't really hurt you. But I don't know that there's really good, solid background behind it.
I know that a lot of the research that's done with magnesium is in the context of ZMA. So it's
Zinc.
magnesium B6. It's actually a compound that's magnesium B6, and I can't remember what the third one is off the top of my head.
Zinc,
But
right, Doriana? Isn't it
is
zinc?
it zinc?
I think it's zinc.
No, but I think
Yeah,
it's like
it's zinc. No, it's zinc.
is it zinc?
Zinc,
Okay,
magnesium,
then I'm
and
thinking of
B.
something else that has something aspartate in it. But anyway, so it's the three of them together, and the three of them together as a compound has a synergistic effect. So when you look at magnesium and its effect on sleep, a lot of it has to do within the context of analyzing it as ZMA versus
Okay.
magnesium on its own.
Okay. Because even I was even thinking that afterwards, I thought, well, I send out a lot of people for sleep disorders, right? So sleep studies and that kind of stuff. And then when they see the neurologists who are doing the sleep consultation, I've never really gotten any feedback about adding magnesium to their kind of like armamentarium, you know.
No, it's just,
So-
I like to compare magnesium with regards to sleep. Like, does it help for some, even if it is a placebo effect, whatever. But
Yeah.
I think it's the kind of thing where, for example, like collagen, or what's that other one that you take for your bones that's from sharks?
Sharks?
Glucosamine and chondroitin. The glucosamine
remember.
and chondroitin.
Yeah. So for example, glucosamine and chondroitin, when you take it together and people say it's good for your joints, it's good for your joints, but it's the kind of thing that you have to be taking over a long period of time to see any effects. So long period being like 6 months to a year, and it has to be coupled with other things. So it's not necessarily is taking magnesium what's helping you, or is it taking magnesium over a long period of time in conjunction with other things like practicing good sleep hygiene, like what you talked about was it last week?
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's difficult to get solid evidence on like if it's actually causing this versus is there a correlation between taking magnesium and other things with regards to sleep.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I know that it also is sometimes used, excuse me, in migraine prevention. Some of the neurologists will actually recommend, now I can't remember exactly the combination, but it's magnesium with a couple other sort of natural things that they will start people on who have migraines for prophylaxis, meaning you take it every day to prevent the migraines from occurring. So that's the other, I guess, kind of role magnesium can play in like a prevention kind of thing. But other than that, I mean, you know, like, yeah, I mean, taking it probably isn't going to hurt you. If it helps with your sleep, great. If it doesn't, I mean, likely no harm done, right?
And if it has a laxative effect,
isn't magnesium an important factor for the absorption of calcium? Like it's the main conductor for the absorption of calcium, right?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So magnesium and calcium definitely work together. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, it's important to have the appropriate magnesium levels, you know, for basic sort of metabolic functions. Sleep on its own, yeah, I think what Doriana said kind of makes sense. Not a lot of evidence behind it.
From personal experience, I didn't even know my wife takes out my vitamins. I was taking magnesium and then I was sleeping really well. So what I could say is, for me, it works really well. It gives me a good night's sleep.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anecdotally, a lot of people agree with that. They'll say, like, I take it and it helps me sleep. So, hey, you know what, if it helps and, you know, it's not causing any issues, by all means, go ahead, right?
What's your take on zinc as an immune booster?
So again, I haven't come across a lot of science behind that in terms of immune boosting with zinc in particular. Maybe, I don't know if Jordana has anything else to add to that, but again, it's a mineral that you definitely need. Do you need to actually supplement it? I mean, you know, if your diet is fairly good and you're not really, you haven't eliminated anything, you're probably getting sufficient amounts through your diet alone. But yeah, I don't know about any specific benefit to boosting those levels.
I think when you look
Thank
at
you.
things that have like immune boosting properties or properties with helping anything really, there's a threshold, right? So like you said, like if you're deficient in zinc, for example, then that's going to compromise your immunity, right? Your immune system. So taking zinc in that scenario would help because you bring it back to your threshold. But I think if, like you said, if you have that already through you're eating a balanced diet and stuff like that, taking that excess is only going to push you past your threshold. So it's not necessarily going to have any further effects on your immune system because you're already, like, if that's making sense. So it'll bring, if you have a deficiency, it'll work in terms of boosting your immune system or whatever. But if you already are up to speed and up to that adequate intake of zinc through your diet, it's not going to do any harm because, like you said, it's water soluble. You're just going to pee it out, but it's not necessarily going to have like those substantial effects.
Right. Yeah. And then the other common one people ask me about is the glucosamine and chondroitin, right? And again, it's one of those things where, because glucosamine and chondroitin are thought to be really helpful in joint health, right? So people will come in and, you know, they're having joint pain, they have some arthritis, you know, will glucosamine and chondroitin help? The studies behind it have been kind of, you know, hit or miss. Some show benefit, some don't show significant benefit. At the end of the day, what I tell people is, look, if you've got beginning to mid-stage arthritis, you're not at a stage where you're going to need a knee replacement anytime soon, or you're too young for that, or whatever the case may be. Besides the lifestyle things, which is weight loss, right? Especially for knee joint pain, because it's a big load to have that extra pressure on your knee. And then your you know, painkillers. I mean, why not try it, right? It's very unlikely to harm you. So I'll tell people, take the glucosamine and chondroitin, and exactly, you're going to have to be on it for a while, but if it helps, great. If it's placebo, but you feel better, still great. I mean, you know, very little risk of actually doing any harm with it. So that's a big one, I think, for just kind of our like population, right? People who are, you know, fitnessing and having some joint pain, that kind of thing.
Doriana, what's your thought on collagen and which format? Because I know there's like gummy format collagen and there's powdered collagen.
Ooh, I don't know much about collagen, actually. I think it's become more recently popular, hasn't it?
It's kind of become like a fad, and I don't want to be part of the fad. So I just want to, I've been not that much research on there because, like you said, you Google and there's tons of stuff, but not much.
So that's a great question, actually. I haven't looked into collagen specifically, but yeah, I agree. I think it is a little bit trendy right now, and you always have to, you know, you have to be aware of these trends that are coming up. Do you need collagen? Yeah, I mean, you know, your body has collagen in it. It's vital to your tissue, your soft tissues especially. But should we be megadosing in it? Probably not. Specific numbers in science, I don't know yet, but I can have a look at that for you.
You'll always find there's always like you said, trends in terms of supplements. So now like the hot thing is collagen in terms of, I think not that long ago it was biotin, and you would have the biotin gummies. I'm not gonna lie, I have them too, but they're also because they're delicious. No, they're so good. The Costco gummies, they're so tasty. Like it's hard to not pop a bunch of them. But you always find that there's always trendy supplements. So the collagen is one now specifically for women. There's always a trendy supplement going through, so you also have to take that into consideration when you're looking into supplementation of whether that's for performance or for health or whatever, is analyzing the science versus what's hot in the market. Like recently, like ketones was another one that's like super popular and everyone and their dog is on ketones. It's like, okay, look at the science comparatively and then take that into consideration when you're considering supplementation too. And the thing with collagen also that people don't realize is in order for collagen to take place in your body, for the mechanism to work, whether that's for connective tissue or whatever, you also have to have a substantial amount of vitamin C in your body. So unless you're supplementing collagen with vitamin C, you're basically peeing out your money, and it's pointless to take it.
And I feel like collagen is really popular among women for the like in the cosmetic sense.
Oh yeah.
Right? And to be honest, if you really want to avoid those wrinkles and sun damage, the best thing you can do is sunscreen. Probably going to give you a lot more bang for your buck than collagen at this point, right? And to avoid the sun damage and the wrinkles. So, but yeah, I mean, again, another one of those really popular things right now. Biotin, yeah, that was another one that came up yesterday, actually. So I had a quick look at that. And again, it's one of those things where if you're deficient in biotin, yes, then you may find some problems, especially with the hair and nails kind of thing. But is it common to be deficient in biotin? Probably not if you have a pretty well-balanced diet. That being said, if you for women or men who are finding that, their nails are really weak or their hair is really thinning out, is it going to hurt you to take it? Probably not. So I know a lot of people will take biotin for that. For hair thinning, however, because it's actually more common in women than you would think. The first thing I tell people is that you have to check your thyroid and your iron, right? If your thyroid is off or your iron stores are way too low, then that can really affect your hair growth as well. So those are two like kind of physiologic things to check before starting on biotin for that. Anything else, guys? In terms of like the vitamins and stuff? Everybody's good with that? Okay. So let's go to creatine, because this is something that I was hoping maybe you guys would even have some advice on. So creatine, and I've looked this up a few times just kind of in the last several years, right? Whether it was just for myself or for, I've had a couple younger patients ask me who are, exercising and that kind of stuff. And is it safe to take? Is it not safe to take? So from what I understand at this point, it is definitely not a banned substance. There was a period of time, I think, where it was kind of this gray zone, like, is it okay? Is it not okay? But actually it looks like, the science behind it is fairly good in that it can definitely help with, especially with the kind of HIIT training, right? This high intensity short workouts. It's used by the muscles, helps with that kind of exercise and recovery. What I find the trickiest thing, and this is where you guys can help maybe, is the form of creatine that is probably the most beneficial, right, is the creatine monohydrate. How do you find a supplement that is just creatine monohydrate? And again, this is where the labeling for me becomes very confusing. I find there's all sorts of, you can find all sorts of creatine supplements, but which ones are the ones where you're actually getting the creatine that you want because it's going to be the most useful? Do you guys have any specific brands that you would recommend?
I think most brands would have it labeled as, like, if you look in the ingredients, the first one with creatine monohydrate. Well, Steve's just getting one out of our pantry. I didn't even. Yeah, the All Max one.
All Max? Okay,
yeah,
so
like this one is, it's only creatine monohydrate. This is the same brand I've taken for years.
And that's the All Max, right?
That's All Max, and that's the one I've tried. Like, I remember Jacked RX came out with like a pill form, and it was like a mix of monohydrate and whatever the other form is. I don't even remember. But the blue one, that's the one I've taken forever, and it's pure monohydrate. That's just on the label, though. I think that's just looking for the label. The big thing is that people wouldn't necessarily know. They see creatine, they say creatine. Like, it's
the marketing, and I'm actually really happy that you brought up creatine, because of all like performance supplements, most of them don't really have, there's a few that are very evidence-based. And I remember when I was in school, learning about this, but there's very, very few supplements in terms of the performance world that actually have documented evidence that they're helpful. Creatine being the big one. But the misconception with creatine is that a lot of people think that you take creatine to get strong
or big.
Yeah. Creatine does not make you strong. It doesn't have strength benefits. The reason why people say that it helps them with strength is because it helps with more explosive
Right.
movement. So if you're doing something like a power clean or anything that's really short in duration with high weight, so something within 10 seconds, like sprinting, Olympic weightlifting, like, I don't know, what's
Basically
something else?
anything under 10
Javelin
seconds.
throwing, anything that's really explosive, creatine is super helpful for. In terms of doing things like your 1 rep max and whatever, creatine does not help. So if you feel that it is helping you, that's solely a placebo effect, because the scientific evidence shows that it doesn't, like, the energy pathways that creatine uses has nothing to do with your strength. It has to do with your explosiveness. And in terms of size, why people take creatine to get big, like competing in the bodybuilding world, everyone is on creatine because they think it makes them big, but it doesn't make you big. The reason why people think it does is because in order for creatine to be able to take place and do what it needs to do and have that quick explosion of energy, it draws in a lot of water. So you might be getting big, but what you're getting big from is actually water retention within your muscles. So if you're overloading on creatine, your body has to take in equal amounts of water for the amount of creatine that you're taking in order for it to take place. So that feeling of being big is actually, you're just getting puffy and it's water weight. And the second you come off of it, you're going to lose all that water. So that's something to take into consideration too. And for people who are considering taking creatine, like creatine is actually helpful for CrossFitters, like for competitive CrossFitters, because there's that element of explosiveness in certain events that you do.
Mhm.
But again, it's not something that you can take, like, let's say you're competing and the event is like a max power clean or something like that. Taking creatine right before is going to do absolutely nothing. You have to be taking it for a substantial amount of time to be able to build up that reservoir in your lean tissue so that it's helpful when that day comes.
Yes.
So I'd probably say for the average, for someone who's like me, just exercising to like get my pre-baby body back or whatever, like, don't bother taking creatine. It's not going to do anything. But if you're someone like a competitive CrossFitter, then it might be helpful. And also, if you are taking creatine, it's important too that you take it with a form of some form of a sugar. So like orange juice, a lot of people take it with, because having something that spikes that insulin release, for some reason, insulin, the mechanism of glucose uptake is very similar to creatine uptake. So you'll find a lot of people, when they take it, you take it with orange juice, or like some people take it with gummies or whatever, anything that's sugary, so you have an insulin spike, and that helps the uptake after you train too.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that part of it I didn't know. But so here's an example of somebody who doesn't know what they're doing when it comes to buying creatine. And I bought this one, which is, can you guys see it? Magnum BC, Big C. See it?
Oh yeah.
Big C.
Okay, but I'll read you Big C. Well, hold on, I'll read you the. So like, I have no idea.
Gotta love the Big C.
Chris is like, yeah, Big C.
I'm buying it.
Yeah.
I'm buying it from Maria. I'm buying it from Maria.
So it has creatine isolate, creatine pyruvate, creatine AKG, tricreatine malate, and then Russian tarragon, ginseng, and astragalus
It
root.
makes you stronger just because it's Russian. That's it.
No.
I've never even heard of that before.
So there
But
you go.
A
You
lot
know,
of that has to do with marketing. Like, you'll find, like, a lot of the times when you go to like a supplement store, and let's say you want to buy something specific, whether that's protein or creatine or BCAAs or whatever, there's always people that like will try to upsell you and
This one has more.
sell you the sexy brand because it has exotic X, Y, and Z. It's like, it's all the same crap. It's all literally the same. It's all just marketing. So
yeah.
something to
So there you
consider
go.
too.
I was suckered. And then BCAAs. What are your thoughts on the BCAAs? Because from what I read, so BCAAs are branched chain amino acids, and amino acids are like the tiny little particles that make protein. So they are they're used by muscles, but apparently there's not very much good quality evidence to say that taking them as a supplement is any better than having a diet that's really rich in meat, let's say. and they also said that they're just, the process of them being oxidized in muscle doesn't happen fast enough to help with performance. I don't know what you guys know behind the science of that, but I found that to be a little bit interesting.
Yeah. With BCAAs, again, it's another thing too, that it's not harmful to take it. And a lot of the times too, you'll find that BCAAs, the supplemented BCAA comes with electrolytes in it. So it's actually the electrolytes that are more helpful than the BCAAs when you're working out. Definitely do not take BCAAs if you have any history of kidney disease, even if you have a family history of kidney disease, because it can be more harsh on your kidneys versus taking like a high protein diet or something like that, because you're taking the you're taking the amino acid in its pure form. But it's the same. It's, if you're having a diet, like you said, that's rich in protein, in complete protein, it's not as critical to your performance as something like staying hydrated or whatever.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because I think that people kind of, it's one of those things where you sort of you get really kind of caught up in it all, and you want to be performing at your best, and so you're taking all this stuff, and then let's kind of just figure out which ones are actually helpful for what type of athlete, and then, because it's also a financial thing, right? Like, these are not inexpensive products. So
what's actually more effective for performance, if you're looking at single amino acids, what's more effective than because the whole premise behind BCAAs is that they help prevent muscle degeneration. So when you train, you have these micro tears in your muscles, and BCAAs prevent that. So that's the science, or the theory behind it, right? What's actually a more effective and a more evidence-based, and there's a ton of research done on alanine.
Beta-alanine.
On beta-alanine, and actually beta-alanine is more effective about performance than BCAAs, and the reason for that is beta-alanine basically acts as a pH buffer in your bloodstream. So when you're training, you create a lot of lactic acid, depending on the nature of the exercise that you're doing, right? Beta-alanine basically takes that lactic acid and accelerates the rate at which it's shuffled through your liver to create glucose again. So alanine is more effective in aerobic exercise and in general, and it's more researched than BCAAs in terms of having solid research in terms of being effective. But alanine, again, if you have, I wouldn't suggest people take it if you're just like the average person trying to get in shape, trying to be healthy. Like I personally would never take alanine. There's no reason for me to take it. If you're a competitive CrossFitter, then you can consider taking it. It makes you itchy as hell.
It's got a weird
Some people
sensation.
say apparently it makes you super, super itchy.
In weird spots. Your ears are itchy, your face is itchy. Like, the first time you take it, you're going to be like, I think I'm having a heart attack. I don't know what's going on. There's bugs under my skin. It's very, very strange.
And the thing with alanine too is, again, it's the same as creatine. If you are going to take it for performance reasons, don't take like you'll see a lot of the time, for example, like pre-workout. Almost all pre-workouts have alanine in it. And the reason for that is because it gives you that tingly sensation if you have too much of it. And people think that tingly sensation is your body getting ramped. Like, yeah, I'm ready to go. It's like, no, that's just a side effect of it. It's not, doesn't have any kind of, like, alanine has no stimulating properties whatsoever. And in order for you to be able to reap the benefits of alanine, you have to be taking it cycled in at slow doses at first for over a long period of time. So again, like 6 months to a year, consistently, to be able to take it and to be able to see the benefits of it in aerobic exercise, specifically in aerobic exercise or anything that generates a lot of lactic acid. Don't take it. It's not going to work.
Right.
But they're starting to put it in BCAAs now as well, and just like how the BCAAs now have everything is starting to have everything now, just to cover all bases.
Exactly, right? And that's the thing is
they most of them even put creatine now in.
Yeah,
exactly.
Most pre-workouts have creatine. They have beta-alanine. They have everything already.
And when you personally, I am not a fan of pre-workouts whatsoever. In fact, I think they can be dangerous for some people, but
yes.
Like, you put creatine in a pre-workout it's not doing anything. Like, you're literally peeing out your money. And the thing with supplements is that you need to be taking them consistently over a long period of time to be able to see any benefit. And that's only for the ones that are like, that are evidence-based, that have the science behind it. But and then people don't see the benefits when they take it for like a week. It's like, well, no, you need to be taking it over a long period of time to actually see any kind of benefit.
Well, that's why I think the education is important, to let people know, like, hierarchy, where, like, again, if you had to pick BCAAs or protein, you're better off taking a protein shake, and you're better off like letting people know, like, again, because you can get, you know, overwhelmed and you think you got to take a million different things. But again, knowing like the hierarchy of what to take, and understanding that, again, taking creatine and taking beta alanine or whatever, it allows you to put in more volume, I guess. It's not caffeine where it's gonna get you jacked up and you feel this like physiological effect. It's allowing your buffer to be raised, to put in a little bit more volume, and that little, you know, 0.5% or 1% every single day over the course of 6 months is going to allow you to see the benefits. Right?
Exactly.
And I think people need to understand that it's allowing you to put in the work. It's not like I'm doing this so I don't need to put in work, right? And
Exactly.
I think that's where clarity needs to happen, where it's like, it's not that it doesn't work. It does work, but it's not steroids here, right? If we want to take steroids and we want to reap the benefits, then we're going to go to Dr. Doriana, say stuff my toe in EGH. But
Say what?
but that's not going to happen. The reality is we got to put in the work, and the little things can happen. It's just understanding to what degree. And also, I think it's important to recap back on the creatine, where, you know, you can retain water, but you'll hear people say that, like, you know what, I don't have abs, I have like rolls because I'm taking creatine. It's like, no, it's because you're not doing cardio and you're not watching what you're eating. Like, you just you have Cheech because you have Cheech. It's like, I think it's, people use that as a crutch. It's like, oh, I'm not ripped. Like, Steve will take creatine. Look at how much water he's retaining. You know what I mean? Like, you can see his veins on his ab. You can see his veins are even cut. You know what I mean? And he's taking creatine. So I think, again, people will use that as a crutch, and people need to realize that it will make you retain water, but not to the degree.
No, and I think when you talk about water retention too, you have to consider that water retention varies a lot from person to person. Like, I retain water like a sponge. If I have even like a teaspoon more salt than I should in a day, I will, like, my fingers will swell up, my face will swell up. So versus Steve,
I don't retain any. I take
he retains like nothing. So if I were to have creatine, I would probably blow up more than he would. So water retention can vary so much from person to person too.
Mm-hmm. Whereas, Chris, I think you were talking about caffeine quickly, because that was the other one that I looked at. And the science behind that is actually fairly good too. Caffeine for more prolonged exercise, as opposed to where we were talking about the creatine, which is for more of that explosive kind of stuff. But still, there's a limit, right? I mean, so I think the max dose of caffeine, they said, was about 200 milligrams. Because you're right, Jordan, a lot of these pre-workouts. So like, if you have a baseline arrhythmia and you're going and you're taking pre-workouts, that can be very dangerous, right? So we have to be careful here, because we don't want you having a heart attack while you're doing your 10K run or whatever.
Yeah, but I think it's important to know when to use it, because like the typical, like if you go to like say Good Life and Lifetime and you see those people, they'll be taking Super Pump and like crazy like shit. But again, if we're doing a 10-minute AMRAP or a 20-minute AMRAP, we're gonna die in the first minute because our heart rate's way too jacked, and like we don't need that. Where they're doing like a 20-second, 30-second pump, rest 3 minutes, and then they can bring the heart rate down. And it's the opposite, because sometimes I'll see people with what's that one? I can't remember. It's something crazy. The name. It's something
Cellucor?
It could be like
C4.
C4. Yeah, C4.
Yeah.
People are like, oh my God, I'm going to go crazy. I'm like, you're going to run 5K, man. Like, you're going to die. That's not going to help. It's going to be the opposite effect. And again, I think it's knowledge where like there's a balance, and then there's a time and a place for everything, where people need to know when to use it, what to expect, and get the most out of it. Because I think that's why coffee is good enough.
And I think with pre-workout too, I should backtrack a bit. I'm not a fan of pre-workout for people who take it consistently before every single workout. And the reason for that being is because it desensitizes. If you take it after or before every single workout you ever do, you're going to desensitize your body, and you're basically increasing that baseline for you to be stimulated. So if I take, let's say, C4 Cellucor before every single workout, eventually that threshold is going to get higher and higher, and I'm going to have to take more and more and more. So if you are if you are going to take a pre-workout, do it and be strategic about the days that you do it. So if you are going to take it before a day that you do, for example, like a max out day or something like that. But do not take, I'm not a fan of taking pre-workouts before every single workout. And I know a lot of my friends that compete in like the bodybuilding industry and stuff like that, they all take pre-workouts. Like my coach, the amount of stimulant he has to take now to be able to like get pumped up for a workout is like, it would give me a heart attack like that. I think I took pre-workout once and I thought I was actually going to have a heart attack. It was a horrible experience.
Especially if you have an underlying anxiety.
Yeah, I have a heart murmur, so I thought, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna throw up, I'm gonna die. It was terrible.
Oh man.
I think that like works with caffeine too. Like I think of people that drink a lot of like, just if you have like 3 cups of coffee a day, like you're not getting the benefit of coffee, like of caffeine as a pre-workout anymore, because there's such a low ceiling. So even people, like I know so many people are like, oh, I have 4 cups of coffee a day. Like it's like, okay, you're taking something that's like a performance enhancing like a legal performance enhancing substance, and you're taking it away from yourself because you're not going to get the benefits of that anymore, because like it's something like over 300 milligrams a day or whatever. Like it's no longer like it doesn't help your performance anymore, something along those lines, right?
Yeah. And with caffeine too, you can have a physiological dependence on caffeine, because you look at people who drink, like Rob, like you said, they have like 4 cups a day. When you take that away and people get like horrible migraines, it's like that's your body indicating you have a problem. Like you need to cut back, because your body, when you take any substance, in the absence of that substance, you should not be experiencing withdrawal. And a headache is essentially a form of withdrawal. So if you do experience that, then that's an indication that you might have a bit of a physiological dependency on a substance.
I had a patient once tell me that he would drink an entire pot of coffee a day. So 12 cups of coffee per day. Per day. That is a lot of coffee. I mean, and caffeine is one of those things. So sometimes we actually use caffeine for headaches, right? Because it can, we don't know why, but maybe it has effects on the vessels, like on the blood vessels. So if that's sort of the phenomenon behind what's causing your headache, but absolutely, you're right, Doriana, like you can have such a dependence on it that then you start to have withdrawal when you're lacking it, right? So, I mean, again, everything in moderation, right? Caffeine is okay up to a certain extent, but you know, there's a limit to that as well.
Do you recommend going off? Like I've done it a bunch of times. I remember I roped Chris into doing like a week of no caffeine, which I'm sure like Chris will tell you was like a super fun week for him.
I remember that week, Rob. I remember.
Yeah, it started with Chris explaining to me that he was not addicted to caffeine in any way, shape, or form. And then I think it was like 24 hours later, he like messaged me at like 9 o'clock at night. He's like, I want a coffee so I can go to bed because I feel so bad.
Look, I mean, I think that there is nothing wrong with having coffee, right? Coffee is not harmful to you, like I said, in moderation. I mean, I went through all of med school without any caffeine at all because I was so anxious at that time in my life. I had so much anxiety. I was under so much stress. It was the one thing that I thought I could take out. Then I had kids, and now I cannot function without a cup of coffee in the morning. I just cannot do anything. So I've totally done this 360, right? But it's all in moderation and, you know, in sort of acceptable amounts. Do you have to not have coffee? No, I don't think that, you know, even in pregnancy, we know coffee is okay to a certain extent, right? Having a cup or two of cups of coffee a day when you're pregnant is fine. But yeah, I mean, you can't overdo it. And exactly, if you're at the point where you take it away and you are miserable and non-functional, then yeah, you might've been having a little too much before. So, because even effects on bone density and stuff, right? With caffeine, you have to be careful. So
yeah, and then you can even look at it the way that we were kind of talking about cold showers, where it's like maybe, you know, you're physiologically not going to get a ton of response over like taking a week off caffeine, but I think psychologically, like taking back power from something like that could be super important. And I found it where, for me, when I went in for surgery, like one of the things that was driving me crazy is like, I'm like going to get surgery and it's like 11 in the morning and I was like really rattled about the fact, one, I hadn't eaten in that day, and two, I hadn't had any coffee. And like, it just really like sunk down on me. I'm like, how weak am I? Like, it's 11:30 in the morning and like, I'm getting my leg cut open and I'm really worried about not having a cup of coffee. I think that changed my mindset to like, okay, what if I was in like a real emergency? Like if you're in like, you know, you look at like Castaway or something, you're in a plane crash with a bunch of people on an island, you don't have coffee. It's not a very realistic situation. But like, do you want to be the guy that like can't function because he doesn't have his cup of coffee in the morning? Like, it just, to me, it seems like this insane weakness that you should like, that we're just here because of like a lack of hard times, I guess.
Well, and you have to consider too, from a dietary perspective, if you're having black coffee and you're having 3-4 cups a day, that's fine. But if you're putting 2 creams, 2 sugars in your coffee every time you're having one, and you're having 4 or 5 a day, I mean, just from a dietary perspective, it's probably not very healthy for you, right? So there's that too, but. Guys, do you have any other questions about the?
Hold on, there's a comment.
Oh,
It says, sorry to go back. I've read that BCAAs have a link with insulin resistance. Have either of you encountered these studies, or can you speak to this?
I did not see anything specific about insulin resistance. Not specifically, Victoria.
Not that I know of, in terms of, as far as I know, insulin resistance has more to do with inactivity,
yeah,
than it does anything. Even excess carbohydrate consumption,
yeah,
doesn't have as much of an effect on insulin resistance as inactivity does, because insulin resistance is basically when you have your glucose receptors on like your muscle cells or your brain cells or whatever, they become more resistant and less effective because there's less of a need to be able to use them. So if you're inactive, your muscles, those glucose receptors on your muscles don't need to be used basically because you're so inactive. So that's where insulin resistance is more evident, as opposed to like something like an excess carbohydrate consumption. So that's as much as I know.
Yeah, the only other tie I can see there maybe is if you're having a BCAA that's loaded with sugar and you're having it regularly. I don't know, but
maybe.
But yeah, I didn't read anything specifically about that and the insulin resistance with BCAAs. I actually did read that they might improve cognitive function and your level of perceived exertion during exercise. But again, I mean, I think that would be so minor that, you know, taking it for that benefit would be negligible. You wouldn't even really notice any significant difference, I don't think. So.
People who like that promote it, they say everything's down to the micro level. It's not a macro level. It just, if you have the ability and you have the opportunity to take something, take it, because again, it will keep you hydrated, right, while you're working out. Again, it's if you have the opportunity to put all the things into place. But if you had to pick one or the other, you're better off taking a protein shake after. Protein shake will be way better than doing BCAAs. But again, that's dependent on what you have access to, and you know what, again, like some people, they're like, I'm only going to pick one thing and one thing only, and you're better off doing that. If you can take two, you know that it's going to be on a micro level. Again, it's not steroids, because everyone compares taking supplements to steroids and looking for something amazing, but everything is, you're just trying to be responsible and do everything you can that could positively help you. And again, it's going to be this, and you can't look at it over the week or over that bottle. It's literally over your lifespan, right? It's having good intentions, right? And if it's going to hurt the bank, you're better off just taking protein.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how we have to look at it. It's not the be all and end all. It's really showing up to the gym every single day and watching what you put in your mouth every single day. That's the main thing to be thinking about anyways, not what supplements.
Yeah. And also I think people need to understand too, when you talk about supplementation and when you talk about, for example, like everyone's like, oh, but in research it did this and that, trying to back up why they should be taking a specific supplement or whatever. I think there's a big discrepancy between the efficacy of a particular substance in a lab versus in real life setting. And just because something, let's say, I don't know, let's say BCAAs, for example, just because it might have a demonstrated effect in a lab setting, that doesn't necessarily always translate over into real life. So in a lab setting, you could have BCAAs demonstrate, I don't know, something like reduced muscle tears in a controlled lab setting, but then you take that and you put that into real life too, and it's like, it might not have that same effect because you have to consider so many other things. You have to consider the person, you have to consider their quality of life, their lifestyle, how much they move, are they hydrated? Like, there's so many factors to consider when you look at a particular substance and how it applies to a person's performance in a real life setting. And also, Chris, when you're talking about like, oh, everyone compares it to steroids, what people don't realize about steroids don't even, like, steroids aren't going to do the work for you, because even if you take GH, even if you take Tren, if you take Clen, if you take all these steroids, all of my bodybuilder friends, like, you can take it, it's not going to do anything for you. You still have to put in the work. In fact, when you take steroids, you have to work even harder because your threshold is that much higher. So it's like, I think when it comes to supplementation, people look for a quick fix when it's really there is no quick
That's
fix.
life.
That's life. No, but I know that's in life, but particularly with the fitness industry, and people are looking always for like the sexy supplement that's going to solve their problems. It's like, supplements are meant to be.
It's called Big C, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Big C. Sorry. My bad.
Let's get that clear. Let's get that clear.
Sorry. But supplements are meant to be, as the name indicates, supplementary. So that means that it's augmenting something. It's augmenting a lifestyle that you have. It's supplementing your good diet. It's supplementing the fact that you're already training consistently, that you're drinking enough water, that you're sleeping properly and stuff like that. But people don't want to do that. So it's always, what supplement can I take to cover up this void instead of me doing the work? So that's, before you take a supplement, I think that's something that you should consider is, are you doing everything in place before taking that?
And
again, if you, like Chris said, if you have to pick and choose, taking a protein shake, there's no harm in doing it. And it's probably the most bang for your buck out of everything.
yeah. And it's like that for anything, you know, like I have parents all the time come in, or even just general, you know, adults, but a lot of parents come in asking, you know, should I be putting my child on a vitamin, on a multivitamin? Well, if you look at the ingredients on multivites, I mean, the doses of the vitamins that you're getting and the minerals in that multivitamin are so tiny that, you know, they're so small that you're not even getting the, let's say, you know, your recommended daily intake from that multivitamin. So what I tell people is, you can take the multivitamin because, again, you're not likely going to cause any harm. You're going to, you know, pee out whatever excess if that's the case, but eat a well-balanced diet. If you just eat a well-balanced diet and you're making your children eat fruits and veggies, fibers, whole grains, and their dairy, they don't need a multivitamin, right? It's this whole, you know, do I need to do this extra? Do I need to, you know, supplement something else? No, have them eat good, well-balanced meals, and that's probably all you need to do. And watch the science behind it. That's exactly, you know, even with the COVID stuff, I mean, you know, that's where I tell people, you have to be careful about what you're looking at on the computer, what you're Googling, because you can find all that kind of stuff, you know, but it shows in, you know, they did a study where it showed that the virus lasts 3 days in a fridge, just like Doriana was saying, you know, it works like this when you use, you know, this supplement in a lab, but that doesn't always translate to real life. So just be cautious, be careful what you're reading, make sure that what you're reading is good science, right? It's evidence-based, the studies that are being done are randomized controlled trials. There's good, solid evidence behind them that you can actually correlate to real life.
I know a lot of studies recently had been like, they're calling it like the replication issue, where, and I think it's just across a lot of different fields where they're just well-founded research studies are not being, like, you can't replicate them years later. Is that affecting the nutrition field as well? Or is that more like other fields, if you are aware of this?
I'm not aware of that. I don't know. Doriana, are you?
Sorry, can you repeat that for a sec?
Well, there was just like, I've been hearing a lot of people talk lately about how a lot of just general like scientific studies that had been thought to be like well-founded double-blind studies can't be replicated now because obviously like elements of it were off. I just wasn't sure how much of that was in like the nutrition field where, you know, like, oh, we did this test on creatine like 20 years ago and improved this and this, and then they go back and retest it and find out, like, oh yeah, like that's actually not the same result that we got initially. So I was just wondering how much had that affected the nutrition world versus other fields.
I think that has to do with science in general, that it's always like the information that you receive. Look, and like even with like COVID, for example, the information's always changing, and the same things with nutrition. I mean, there's things like there's research that's been done in like the 80s with regards to nutrition that's been debunked. And that's why you say, for example, like Canada Food Guide, that's always changing. So now the Canada's Food Guide that's been released recently has a completely different spin to it versus what it was in the 90s and the 80s. And that's because a lot of the research is always changing. So you go back, and while you might not necessarily be retesting the exact same experiment or research or whatever, you're retesting the principles of it and finding new evidence as the years come. But I think that's something that's common to science in general, not just nutrition solely.
And sometimes when you go back and you do try, either you try and replicate something or you re-examine data, you actually find things that you didn't see the first time around. Or you, like, I'm just thinking, for example, there was the big WHI trial, the Women's Health Initiative trial that came out probably about 12 years ago, because I remember I was in medical school, and that was the whole thing about hormone replacement therapy. This huge trial was done. Hormone replacement therapy was deemed very dangerous. All these women came off their hormone replacement therapies. And then a number of years later, they went back and they realized that, whoa, whoops, the studies were done in the wrong patient population. They weren't exactly the women we should have been studying it in. So now we have to go back and reanalyze that data, right? So that happens too sometimes. And that's just part of the process, right? You learn something, then you kind of reevaluate it. Oops, we have to tweak it a little bit. It wasn't quite what we thought it was. And I mean, that's just science for you, right? But I think, guys, I think that was most of the stuff. I think the only thing I didn't really bring up that I had looked at was probiotics, because that's another really trendy, popular thing that came out in the last few years. And I'll tell you what I know about them. And then, like I said, I'm kind of glad Doriana is here because she can kind of give me her 2 cents as to what she knows. But in terms of probiotics, you know, the good bacteria, mostly kind of discussed around GI and gut health. I think the recommendations, so I have a lot of people just asking about probiotics in general. I think when they come in most handy, specifically if I have people who have things like irritable bowel syndrome, that's the biggest patient population where we use them. And probably the other biggest one is in people who are on antibiotics, because a lot of times people will suffer from diarrhea from antibiotic use. And so we will put them on a course of probiotics then. But again, probiotics, kind of the same thing with all these other supplements and vitamins and things that we've been talking about, is that a lot of them are not, number one, regulated. So you don't exactly know what you're ingesting when you're taking them. And number two, haven't really been scientifically studied. The one that I see most common and that I've heard through various talks and conferences from the gastroenterologists, there's one that has probably the most evidence behind it, and that is called Align. It's ALIGN. So when I do recommend a probiotic, it's usually that one. And they actually have a pediatric form of it now as well, so you can use it in kids as well. But it's one of those things, like if I have, you know, somebody who I know, we've ruled out all their, you know, all the serious stuff. So they don't have Crohn's, they don't have colitis. We know it's IBS, that kind of thing. Then I'll put them on a course of Align of the probiotic and just tell them to stay on that. If it helps, great. If not, you know, you come off of it. But I'm sure you guys have heard of them, right? Because they're kind of all over the place now.
One thing too to add about probiotics is that, and I spoke about this like a couple weeks ago, I think. There's probiotic and then there's prebiotic, and prebiotics are basically the food for the probiotic. So you'll get, when you talk about, you have to be able to develop a critical eye in terms of not getting screwed over by marketing. You'll have a lot of people that market like prebiotic stuff that you can take. Prebiotic is basically the food, right? So prebiotics feed the gut bacteria, But instead of getting a prebiotic supplement, it's much, much easier and much more cost effective if you just eat fruits and vegetables, especially like the peel, because things like, for example, like an apple peel has enough prebiotic to feed the gut bacteria for, I think it was like 2 weeks or something like that. And that's just from one apple peel. So if you're taking in, it goes back to, again, lifestyle. If you're consuming adequate fruits and vegetables, and you have lots of vegetables and lots of fruit at every single meal, you're providing enough prebiotic material to be able to supplement and feed the probiotics in your gut so that you can help them flourish. And also eating a lot of, when you talk about probiotic supplementation, like you said, Doriana, it's good for people who are on like antibiotics and stuff like that. But even just for healthy people, if you have a diet that's rich in probiotics, that would look like something like having yogurt, fermented products and stuff like that. So anything that's fermented is high in probiotic. So when you look at cost effectiveness too, if you have a diet that's rich in those fermented foods, you save a buck because you don't need to take probiotic supplements. And if you eat fruits and vegetables, you don't need to buy prebiotics. So that's something to consider too.
So beer, just drink a bunch of beer.
Beer is good for probiotics.
Cost effective.
Yeah.
Right?
And you get hammered at the same time. So it's like a win-win situation.
Guys, I'm so sorry. It's 11:15. I just looked at the time. I'm like,
one last question.
Fine, go ahead.
I have a question that just like a really fast question about prenatal vitamins.
yes.
So throughout my pregnancies, I've always gone, to the pharmacist and like, what is the, the best prenatal vitamin? And the last time with Selena, they told me, you know what, it's all marketing. They all have the same thing. And I just wanted to know, is that true? Because and they're saying as long as you get the folic acid,
Yes.
Because there's ones that are literally like $60-something if you go to the health store, and then there's ones that are like $12.99. So are they all the same thing? And is it just marketing because all you do need is the folic acid?
The only time I'll specify a prenatal vitamin is if I have a patient, a woman who is having a really hard time with the iron. Then I will suggest PregVit because it's separated into a twice daily dosing, so it's easier on the gut. Otherwise, if they're tolerating a regular prenatal vitamin, I don't care if it's Life Brand, if it's Materna, it doesn't matter. What you need is two things. You need the folic acid, which, by the way, you should be on that 3 months before conception anyways. So some people will just take folic acid by itself for 3 months before and then switch to the prenatal. But I just say if you're of childbearing age and you're not, trying to prevent pregnancy, then just be on a prenatal vitamin because you need the folic acid. And also you need to not have the vitamin A. So you can't just go and buy a regular multivitamin when you're pregnant, which has folic acid in it, because it will also have vitamin A, which can be dangerous. So that's the reasoning behind being on a prenatal vitamin. But as long as you have, because they're all going to have the calcium, the folic acid, and the appropriate level of vitamin A, I don't think there's a real benefit between one versus the other, right? As long as you're on a prenatal vitamin, I'm happy.
Got it.
And about the vitamin A too, one thing that I specifically remember, because when I was in school, we did a specific section on like prenatal nutrition. And one of the things that resonated with me was a lot of the RDs, when they prescribe prenatals and stuff like that, or when they suggest prenatals, instead of vitamin A, what's a much safer option is if you take the carotenoid version, because a carotenoid is the precursor to vitamin A. So carotenoids don't have, so like beta carotene and stuff like that, the type of vitamin A that you find in like carrots. It's not detrimental to the growing fetus because it doesn't have that same activity, because it's the precursor. So your body will only convert beta carotene to vitamin A in the amounts that it needs it and not more. So a lot of the times you'll find it's more effective in like prenatals. They won't have vitamin A, but they'll have like beta carotene and stuff and like that as well.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay.
We're like an hour and 20 in right now, guys. I think I think we should cut it off early. Keep it on a high note. Mac, I don't know if you can go into a whole talk on this next time because I didn't bring it up because again I'm sure it's going to take a long time. But Are you prescribing, let's not go into detail, but are you prescribing people to take CBD oils?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can go there.
No. Is that like a whole other topic you can talk about?
It can be. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah, it can be.
We'll leave that as a cliffhanger then for today.
My answer is very short, but it can be a long discussion.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right,
Yeah.
well, you know what? Let's
Okay,
just cut it off now because, again, we got class in, I think, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But, honestly, Doriana, we appreciate you. Again, this is week 4, and it's getting longer and longer, so that means more and more people getting more attentive to.
I'm happy as long as it's helpful.
100%.
Great.
It's
Thank
great
you.
to me. Yeah, so
Good.
I really appreciate it, and thank you very much.
No problem. Have a good day, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
See you later, guys.
Anna. Thank you,
See ya.
guys. Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Brianna.
Thank you.